Hi, Eddie Troxler here. This is another episode of Jazz Chat, jazzchat.org. You can find us on the internet. Also, my YouTube channel, I believe it's under Eddy, E-D-D-Y, Troxler, Troxler. And you can watch them on FATV. I would like to... The FATV has helped me a lot with these because I really didn't know anything about that. Fitchburg Access Television is where we're doing these videos. And I choose what I do here. I have guests on from time to time, or sometimes I just do it solo. So I like to encourage, well, my logo says ignite your imagination. So to innovate rather than imitate, because I've played in tons of classic rock bands, and they want to play it exactly like the record or CD or whatever people listen to on music these days on podcasts. But I'm not, so I wasn't really happy doing that. I would rather, when I play jazz, I'm going to play it quite different solo as I would with a whole band, or if I were doing a duo, maybe with just a bass player or something. So there's different ways I would approach. Today I chose When You're Smiling. It's from 1928, which is well within our public domain realm. Well, it's just a couple of years. I think right now, anything 1929 or prior is public domain. So this, it was written for a play or a musical of some kind. I can't remember. I should have researched it a little more. And there's a whole nother beginning part that you don't really hear people do. Mostly you hear it from, when you're smiling. And that's in C. That would be a bad key, which I'll go over it in C first, and then we can choose some other keys. And that's really the way to really learn a jazz tune, is to go over it in more than one key to really get it happening in your head, to me. So looking at it, calls for a C6. That just means there's a C chord, but you're adding an A, or you could think of an A minor with a C in the bass. You don't really even necessarily need that 6. So a lot of times there's a melody note or something that they put that in there for it, but there's not in this case. It's just you're pretty much doing an arpeggio, E, G, C, right? That's the melody notes. And then you go on to a B in the melody. So that would be like a major 7th. Yeah. And that's just using a plain old, cowboy chord there. You can do that, especially when you're first learning that. And I try to teach people, as opposed to other videos and methods that I see on the internet. I don't give a bunch of tab. Sometimes I might, but not this time. I encourage you to learn to read the notes, the actual notes. If you work with a violinist, a flutist, anything like that, they don't know what tab is. And really, if you get my book, you can download it for free at jazzchat.org. From blues rock to Bach. Just take a little at a time. I start people, just learning open strings and how they look on the music paper first. And just do those pages 16, 17, and 18 of my book. And then we start on the first 4 frets of the G, the B, the E. And do that for a while and learn some melodies on those 3 strings. And then we do the lower 3, which you get down below the staff. Guitar music, we only read treble clef, so we're a lot of times we're down below the staff. You shouldn't see guitar music below the low E, which is 3 ledger lines down sitting on the bottom, unless they're calling for a drop D or something, but don't worry about that for now. But if you just put a little time into reading, try to read some music that you haven't seen before, you haven't heard. If if you're reading something like, you're just gonna play it by ear anyway, so it's not like you're really reading. So like like those Bach sonatas and partitas or something like that. There's easier ones too, horn charts, whatever. And also, before you can start thinking about the theory behind chords and stuff, you really have to learn your key signatures too. They're in my book, but also there's some good programs. If you don't have your guitar with you, say you're I used to live in Boston and I'd ride the T all the time. So if you have some downtime where you could work on. I was in music school there, so I was always trying to fill in all my spare time. So I would do stuff when I was riding the train, try to read some music or whatever. Yeah, so if you just put a little time into that reading every day, you'll get it, and then you can, really most of my good paying gigs are because I can read, to tell you the truth. No, you don't need to read to play classic rock and bars or play blues. And there's a lot of great jazz players that don't read either. But I think it's going to only enhance your ability. There seems to be a myth that people may think it is going to alter their playing style or something. But no, it's going to only make it better, to tell you the truth. The more you can learn about music, if you want to pursue it as a career especially, learn all you can about it. Cool, because we got to communicate it to other people. So when you're smiling, I have it in the key of C here. We're going to stay on the C for 4 bars. According to this chart, you'll see a lot of variation. And like I say, if there were a singer or a lead player, I'm going to back off on those chords, I don't want to cover them up. If I'm the only one playing, I can kind of fill that in more. So I got to have my own bass line, right? It calls for an E minor 7th here. I don't know if I agree with that. I would do a G or an F. Then it's calling for a D minor with an F in the melody. Then you have a D minor 7. And that's the G, where the sun comes. And I'm not a singer by any means, but as I've said before in these videos, knowing at least one verse helps a lot, and really it's not, I play in restaurants a good bit lately. I'm thankful for it. But people say, oh, you're so talented, No, it's really just a lot of work. Some of these songs, not this one, I haven't played through that much, but a lot of the songs I play that I've played through them hundreds and hundreds of times, so that's why it looks effortless, but it wasn't when I first started at all. So when you're smiling, we have a G down there, and then F. So now we're into a different part. Usually you'll have some, if you pull this chart, I'll put it up on, I can't really, but you have like a 2 thin double bars. That just kind of indicates there's a different part. Sometimes they'll mark it a B section or whatever. So this time it goes up to a B flat. When you're crying. And they cancel that flat there. Then that's pretty much that's the whole song, because you're back to the A section now. It kind of goes up higher for the ending. That's That's the end right there. So it's not that difficult. The melody, you just play the melody a couple of hundred times, play these chords a couple of hundred times, and they're looking at this particular chart, I would be changing a few of those, but let's try that. Well, we're just playing the chords. So yeah, that it's just a matter of listening, or listening to some other people do it too. I think I put this in C just for the purposes of teaching. I'm not sure what key most people do that. I'm pretty sure the F might be the more normal key. Because that would be for my voice, it would be too high. But maybe a soprano or something. Let's see if we can bring in we'll bring in the band here, and we'll see what key that I had performed it at before. I think I did it last night. I was on a gig. There it is. Yeah, it's in F. So the same thing applies. The key of F, if you don't know, has one flat, which is B flat. If you play an F scale, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So the F chart, it should be the same, but like I say, sometimes these things are different. There'll be quite a bit of difference a lot of times. But let me just see what chart I have here, and I can show you. All right, when you're smiling. It's fairly much the same, as the one I did in C. I think it's actually from the same program. I just switched the key. So if we pull in this band, we're going to do it in F. So then I could put it like, there's a... That's I think that ending actually came from. I mean, the people use it in a lot of stuff, but that Billy Strayhorn, and I might would intro to the the last four would be a decent intro. So you want to let your band know that's where the beginning of the tune, and that was in the key of F. So we have an F for the first four bars, and then we have so it calls for A minor to D to D7, and really that's just a 2/5 going into this. It's a 2/5 of a 2/5, really. It finally gets you back to the F, you know. But the same thing in C. Let me go through it again, and I'll I'll pretty much play the chords. I'll try to do some comping. Don't know if I can bring in the melody. Let's see, maybe it's in here. Window. I'm not. Some of these tunes I do have the melody, and some of them I don't. So, and I'm not quite sure. All right, so the melody is on vibraphone. And I'll play some chords behind it. We're still in F. I'll switch it to C in a second. That was with them, the computer playing the melody. I'm not sure how they. Some of these are what they call live. They're real tracks, so it's actual musicians. But a lot of times it's the a MIDI file. You know, they've just put the notes in there, and they kind of the alter. They kind of, we used to call it humanizing in the early days of sequencing. But these days, you know, you can add audio files, like files of a whole band or whatever. When I first started using computers and music, we had these computers that they had like, well, the top of the line had about 16 megs of RAM, but mine at home only had 8 megs, megabytes of RAM. You know, now we're up to what, and it really didn't hold anything, and they would crash if you weren't. So you could do MIDI files, which is just digital information. It tells something else to play the notes, rather than the computer actually playing the notes. So that's kind of the way I learned. It was good for learning, and you know, certainly more interesting than just a metronome. So it helped a lot. So when you're smiling, yeah, check it out. The word when you're smiling, that would be easier. If I were required to sing it, like I said, I'm not a singer, and I can't even see the words. They're pretty small in this. So it's when you go to E there, which in this case is an F major 7, and then and I was doing some different things when I was playing those chords. If you learn those triads that I've posted, and the way to learn those, do them in all 12 keys. The ones I put in the book first are the high 3 strings, and I've talked about this on other videos on Jazz Chat. But it is one of the things that I probably use the most are these triads on the high 3 string. Do it in all 12 keys. You know, if you do G, do D. It's just 3 shapes, and you're just moving them around. You know what I mean? And that'll help you with learning your key signatures. You know, do it to a metronome. You can work on timing at the same time. So C, E. So the notes I'm playing are C, E, G, E, G, C, G, C, E. So here's a beat. 2 beats apiece. Sorry. I need to practice them. Then we do G, which I'm going to start with this shape, which is the first inversion. Is a B, a D, and a G. Then the second inversion, and then the root position. The D, we can start with that normal shape that everybody knows, you know, the D shape. That's really the second inversion. There's the first inversion, second inversion. I mean, when you play the, you know, if you're playing cowboy music or folk music, you usually put that D in the bass. And you could do that on D, you know, just go through the inversions with it. It might sound cool. If you come up with something, you know, it's your song too. So I always encourage that too, you know, let it flow if you come up with something cool, you know. And then do the minors, you know. All 12 keys though. It'll help you learn those key signatures. C minor. Those shapes are on there. So once you do that, then you also have them this direction too. I don't use those as much, but it helps you learn the layout of the guitar. You know, so if you take that first, the root position, whatever I take off of there, I'm going to put on up top. So put that G up here. Take that E off, put that there. And this next shape, I take that C off, put it there. Take the G off, put it there, and then this shape, that D shape, and then I take that F off. Actually. D, no, I'll be up there, right? So That's the C shape. Sorry. So I have G, C, and E. If I take that E off, I'll put it up here. And take that C off, I can put it up there. And then take this G off, I'll put it there. See how that works? And then the next step of things that I use a lot are seventh chords, and I'll put some diagrams of those up. You'll see me using them a lot. So a minor seventh. So I'll put this up, but it gets to be a little, the ones I use, I substitute some of the major sevenths. For one thing, they're a lot easier to grab. And it's generally you can substitute. So, but anyway, the minor sevenths are good. The minor sevenths, like, that's a G minor, right? Like if you think of the top part of that. And then we're doing the high 4 strings now because it's a 4-note chord. My B flat is right there. And that I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna give you pictures of these. And that you have to practice those in all 12 keys, you know. Like the C one, the C minor, you would do this shape. I could start with this shape as far as C minor 7. And you're back to where you started. So I do use those a lot too. It's because a lot of times you need that 7th. The ones that I alter, and this is the way I was taught by some teachers at Berkeley. They're easier to grab, especially if you're playing, you know, bebop or something that's super fast. You can't really play a lot of those shapes, but it clashes. If you have like a major 7th, say G major 7th, you have a G, B, D, and an F sharp. So you have a G and an F sharp in that chord. Which will clash if they're too close together. So a lot of times we just substitute a 6th chord. So I have some easy shapes, and I substitute the first pattern. And I'm thinking about the the notes of the high E right now. I'm gonna go G, B, D. That's the ones I use for major 7th. That first one is a substitution. I have an E instead of that F sharp. With the F sharp, it doesn't sound as good, and it's also harder to grab. See that doesn't really get it to me, to my ear. But so just use that 6. Here's the next inversion. That does have all the notes. There's it's just flattening this finger and putting that G root. So I have a G, I have a D, and I have an F sharp, and I have a B. Then we'll go back to the same shape up here. So I have the B, and I have an E, and then I have my 5th right there. I have an A in there too, so it's a G9, major 9. So those two shapes I'm substituting for that one and the 5th. Yeah, the root. Thinking about this note, the root and the 5th, the same shape. And then this 7. I have the F sharp there, and I have a G, a B, and a D, a G, and a B there on the 12th fret. Oh, it looks like I'm almost out of time. Wow. I'll be back next week. I think I have some guests coming on, so make sure and watch. And hopefully I've inspired you to practice and keep playing, because I'm right at my 30-minute mark right now. Thank you for watching.